Let's call the meeting to order. This is the regular City Council business meeting for Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. Let's rise and please begin the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Scarenti,
Present.
Councilwoman Ryan,
Present.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Present.
Councilman Burns,
Present.
Councilman Strong,
Present.
Councilman Scanlon,
Present.
and President Rosnetti.
Present.
That's all 7 here.
And next we have approval of the minutes. Councilman Scarinci.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask for unanimous approval for the minutes from the February 17th, 2021 business meeting.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, so we have one item tonight under approval of appointments. You've each been provided a copy of the resume for the new planning commission appointment. We discussed this in our February 15th work session. Does anyone have any discussion on this appointment, or would anyone like to go ahead and make a motion?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to nominate Kelly Weiss for an appointment to the City of Binghamton Planning Commission.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. So
Any
we'll have the
discussion?
clerk take, any discussion? We'll have the clerk take roll call.
All right. So when we do roll call, please state the name of the individual you would like to appoint to the planning commission. Councilman Scarinci,
Kelly Weiss.
Councilwoman Riley,
Kelly Wise.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Kelly Weiss.
Councilman Burns,
Kelly Weiss.
Councilman Strong,
Kelly Weiss.
Councilman Scanlon,
Kelly Weiss.
and President Rosnetti.
Kelly Weiss.
That's 7 votes for Kelly Weiss.
Thank you, and congratulations, Kelly. So now we're going to move on to public comments. City residents are welcome to call in. You'll have 5 minutes to speak on city issues, and I ask you to please be respectful. Lee, could you tell
Yes.
us the number?
So the number tonight to call in for public comment is area code 607-772-7100.
Hi, this is Councilwoman Friedman. Point of information, the number is different than it usually is?
Yes, we spoke with IT. They, for whatever reason, changed the number. And now it's 772-7100.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Hi, you're here for public comment? Yes, and what is your address? Okay, John Street, you said? Okay, I'll put you through. Okay, this is Manny Griffin from John Street in Binghamton.
Hello, my name is Manny Griffin, and I am a resident of Binghamton, New York. I have been a member of this community my whole life. I am an African-American male and have been an African-American male my whole life. I call tonight to talk about a main concern in our community. I call tonight to talk about police reform and systematic oppression. What is systematic oppression? The question I ask is rhetorical in sense, but I will proceed to answer it. Systematic oppression is when you fail to address the needs of the Black community. Systematic oppression is when you invest over $1 million into Rec Park tennis courts, but segregate the basketball court and leave it to rot away. Systematic oppression was when you place the only water fountain in rec park at the tennis court and not one at the basketball court. Systematic oppression is when you outlash at a black woman for questioning military-grade weaponry for the police. Systematic oppression is justifying that outlash by stating it's not military-grade weaponry, but it's a hand-me-down from the military. Systematic oppression is when you decide to listen to John Solak go on a racist rant for 5 full minutes, but then decide to silence the whole black community the second someone confronts him. Systematic oppression is when you continue to lock us up and murder us in the Broome County Jail. Systematic oppression is when you pretend there's not a problem. Systematic oppression is when you feed, clothe, and house thousands of members of this community and then get called a hate group by the mayor. Systematic oppression is when you villainize and fight against systematic oppression. Systematic oppression is when the abuse of the black community by the police calls for police reform. Systematic oppression is excluding the black community from police reform. Systematic oppression is failing to listen to the black community. Systematic oppression is when you continue to silence the black community. Systematic oppression is villainizing the black community. Systematic oppression is when you pretend that systematic oppression does not exist. Systematic oppression is the reason for police reform. Currently, our city is calling for police reform, reforming the police. The summer of 2020 has been a national cry for police reform and ending systematic oppression. After all the protests, after all the marching, after demanding police reform, justice, and equality for the black community the whole summer and for hundreds of years, after all of this, we are now just starting to talk about police reform. Not because those in power have decided to listen to the outcry of the black community. That is not the case. We only now begin to talk about police reform because of the executive order issued by Cuomo. That is the only reason. Our city has already failed at police reform when those in power have decided to increase the police budget. Those in power have ignored and continue to ignore the voices of the black community. While other cities around the country have done their best to listen to the voices of the black community, Binghamton continues to proceed with deaf ears. I have faith in God and in the ordinary people of this community that have fought systematic oppression. I have little to no faith in police reform for this city. How can I, an ordinary member of the black man of this community, have faith in police reform when I can't even expect a water fountain at my children's basketball court? How can I expect police reform when those who have fought for my rights have been called a hate group by the mayor of this city? How can I expect police reform when the mayor glorifies the tyrant Christopher Columbus but villainizes those who fight for true liberty and justice and equality? How can I expect police reform when the committee designed to reform the police consists of less than 15% of black people? How can I expect police reform if the only reason for police reform is because our city is being forced by Cuomo? How can I expect police reform if thousands of members of this community that demanded justice and equality for the black community are continuing to be ignored? How can I expect police reform if I'm villainized when I fight for my rights? So what is true police reform? True police reform is listening to the black community. True police reform means to defund the police and fund those in need. True police reform means to stop racially profiling the black community. True police reform means holding officers accountable when they racially profile and they use excessive force. True police reform is making the statistics on racial profiling and police brutality transparent for public view. True police reform means to listen to the black community. Police reform does not mean militarizing the police. Police reform does not mean playing basketball with black kids in order to save the image of the police. Police reform does not mean to excessively fund the police department instead of funding those who are homeless and need food. Police reform does not mean to exclude the black community from having a say in police reform. The black community is sick and tired of being sick and tired. We have been ignored. We have been silenced. Our people are being overpoliced, brutalized, and murdered in the Broome County Jail. We know what systematic oppression looks like. We know what systematic oppression sounds like, and we know those who continue to enforce it. Currently, the Committee for Police Reform consists of less than 50% of black people. How can they, the black members of the Reform Committee, truly speak out for the black community when they are severely outnumbered? Also, the Police Reform Survey, which was created by God knows who, is extremely biased as it does not allow for input of the black community. It also excludes those who cannot afford internet, which consists of a large quantity of the black community. If you think that police reform means playing basketball or sports with our children at their playground, then you have extremely missed the mark. I will not have my children interact with any officers or my people continue to be prosecuted by the police.
Sir, your
My
5
children
minutes is
will not
up.
be used for your photo shoots while you continue to persecute my people. It does not matter how many cats the Binghamton Police
Sir,
Department
thank you.
saved
Your
from
5 minutes
trees
is up.
if
Sorry.
none of the officers are held accountable for using excessive force and racial.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Lee, could you please read that number again?
Yes. So the number again to call in tonight is area code 607-772-7100. That's 772-7100. Hi, you're here for public comment? Okay, what's your full name and address? Okay, I'll put you through. Okay, this is Mary Clark from Laurel Avenue in Binghamton.
Hi, I'd like to just first start off by, talking about this whole process that really totally disregards and makes it almost impossible to make any comments in regard to the police reform. It seems systematically designed to not hear from the community at large. And I think the last caller just had said that, that that we're villainized if we say anything. And the police has called my organization a hate group. That's far from the truth. We're advocating for the community. One of the things that is really frustrating is at the last real public comment opportunity, they had a very convoluted process. You had to register days before, you then couldn't speak even though that we were on. You could not, so there were at least 15 people who weren't allowed to speak at the police reform so-called public hearing. When the county did the public hearing, we were able to actually take turns and be like a real public hearing. I think the next public hearing you have to tell people when you're doing the public hearing, and that's a question I have. When is the next real public hearing? You need to give people a week's notice on this. You can't just drop these hearings whenever, willy-nilly, and because it's incredibly frustrating. Now, tonight, you change the number that people can call in on to make public comment. And then when we are addressing that survey, it was a ridiculous, bogus survey. I took the survey and there was nowhere for you to say none of the above. I disagree. Adding in another comment, other choices. It was completely designed so that you will get the results that you want to get because you had no other alternatives to choose other things or any option to actually interject what you would like to see in police reform. So I think you are systematically blocking out people from comment. And this is a real problem. And you need to improve this at your next public hearing. That really allows people simply to get in very similar to how the county did their process, that people were allowed to participate. The last time we tried to participate and they just closed us off and said, no, you didn't register properly, but you're here today, but you still can't comment. This is ridiculous. I think we have said numerous times, we've been out in the parks, out talking to people who are directly impacted by policing here in this community. We drew up, asked people what they wanted to see, drew up a whole series of proposals that people came from the people. None of those thoughts were on the survey. They took none of those ideas that came from the community to ask what other people thought of them. So this process is looking to be a sham, and you can change that. And we're offering, that you actually really change this process because what you're doing now is not eliciting real change. And we need to have, the number one thing that we need to have in police reform is there needs to be an independent oversight board over the police. Because numerous times I hear people complaining about the police, and their concerns go unanswered or undirected. You
have 1 minute left.
There is no accountability of the police. You have the police policing themselves. The community is out here and having no recourse to complain to anyone, and therefore there's no change in police behavior. We need to see less policing, and we need to have more community advocates and social workers, because that's the most calls that occur. And for us to add 8 more police to our force is ridiculous, when we could be using other models of expanding real help to our community and divesting from the police and reinvesting in things that really make our community safe and safe and healthy. So I just think that we want to know when the next public hearing is, and you need to set up a system that you don't change the numbers the minute the night comes, or that you block people out who are there and present trying to comment.
Ma'am, your 5 minutes is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, Lee, could you please read that number again?
Yes, so the number again is 772-7100. Hi, you're calling for public comment. Okay, what's your full name and address? Okay, what was the street again? I'm sorry. Okay, I'll put you through. Okay, this is Teresa Weathers from Rexford Street in Binghamton.
Hi, my name's Terry, and I'm going to talk about my experiences with the Binghamton Police Department as a Black woman in the city. Every time that I've tried to call the police department for assistance, they really have not been very helpful. Oftentimes, I felt like I was the criminal. I don't know if anybody has ever tried to take out an order of protection before against somebody, but I was once in a place in my life where I thought I needed a little help. That is like a 10-hour ordeal where you're taken into the police department, you're put into a room, you're treated like you did something wrong. And not only did I went through the process, I jumped through the hoops, and much like this police reform process from the city of Binghamton, every time you jump through a hoop, they step back and they light another hoop on fire for you to try and jump through. It's about 6 hours in the police station to fill out all the paperwork. I got home, and maybe 45 minutes later, the individual was contacting me. So I did what they told me to do. I called to report the violation of the order, and I was asked, what do you want us to do about it? That was not the last time I called them. It should have been. There was one more time. I had a son who was having some troubles, and the reason why it's important for me to state that I am a mixed race Black woman, lifelong resident of the city of Binghamton, is because of my sons. I think that I can speak directly to racial profiling in the police department because I have 2 sons, one of whom presents as a white male, and one of whom definitely presents as something else. It's hard to tell by looking at him. You can't really type a race. It depends on, race is in the eye of the beholder. It depends on who is looking at him, what they decide he is. Now, you know, my 2 sons, they're 11 months apart. They're very close in age, and they have completely opposite personalities. One is the mischievous one. If there's a little bit of trouble to be had, a little bit of pushing things extra, it would be him. He is the one who presents white. The other one is a calm, steady, straight edge kind of guy, and he is the one who presents dark. My eldest son has repeatedly been stopped by Binghamton Police Department and asked to produce identification to prove who he is. He's asked before why he's being stopped. He's been stopped with his brother. And, you know, when he asks why, he's told he fits a description. And sure, yeah, like many young, non-white appearing males, he does fit a certain kind of description, a kind of description that the BPD routinely stops young men of color for no other reason. They're profiling our children all the time. You know, I thank God that my son, that one was born with the cool demeanor, because he doesn't have the luxury of having a bad day and demanding what's going on, because that could kill him.
Yes, you have one.
So I would like to say, as a part of police reform, that racial profiling that appears to be a standard practice of the Binghamton Police Department needs to be prohibited. And, you know, I'd go further to say that we need a whole lot of more non-police people that are there to help community. They're there to help victims of domestic violence, so they're not re-victimized by the people who are supposed to be protecting them. I am so tired of the convoluted ways that these things happen. And it's almost like you're talking to a police officer when you can feel them rolling their eyes at you. That's exactly what this whole sham of a police reform deal that's going on in this city is right now. It is a giant eye rolling to the people, at the people.
Your 5 minutes is up. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Lee, please read that number again.
Yes, the number tonight to call in is area code 607-772-7100. Hi, you're calling for public comment? Hey, what's your full name and address? Okay, I'll put you through. Okay, this is Alexis Pluth from Pine Street in Binghamton.
Hi there. As stated, my name is Alexis Pluth, and I'm the Executive Director of Truth Farm, and I'm calling tonight to talk about the police reform opportunity that the City of Binghamton had, which was presented to the City of Binghamton last July by the Governor. And the City of Binghamton waited all the way until, I believe it was December or January, to start the process. So sadly, really late to do anything truly innovative and really meaningful. I've attended all of the hearings that have been presented and was really disappointed in the accessibility process that was utilized. Specifically, the last hearing that was called a public hearing, and it was even advertised as an open public comment hearing with a Zoom meeting link. So that would imply to people that anyone could attend by clicking on that Zoom link and provide public comment. What they did not make clear to the public was that they had to register first. So many people were prevented from providing comments during the open public comment process. I'm calling the City Council meeting tonight to talk about this because I believe that our government at all levels is set up to have checks and balances. And I feel that it's the City Council responsibility to be that check and balance. The mayor has made multiple statements really despairing towards local organizations who have done extensive community work to try to find out what police reform would or should look like. And meanwhile, the mayor calls us hate groups, which is really outrageous. And I would love to see the City Council step in and take a role and responsibility in this process that the city is undertaking. I also want to mention that I do really appreciate Joe Burns and any of the City Council members who come on camera for these public comment periods, because it shows us that you're really listening and paying attention. And to those who don't bother to do that, I think it's incredibly disrespectful. with the police reform issues. Currently, City of Binghamton has far too many police officers, and we see that whenever police officers are called. I have personally witnessed a situation with a woman who police were called on her. She had a small child with her, and 9 officers showed up. That's escalating a situation unnecessarily. This is a very small woman, and I can only imagine that Binghamton has way too many officers if 9 officers feel the need to show up for a small woman and a small child. A Black woman, I will add, of course. And the same thing we saw with the Black Lives Matter rallies this summer. I think there were about 60 police officers who showed up in riot gear. Apparently, we have way too many officers with way too much time on their hands if we have 60 officers showing up to a rally where there were peaceful protesters, not weaponized. Also, City of Binghamton has, I believe the percentage is 49% of the children in the City of Binghamton are food insecure. I'm curious why we're not feeding children, but we have a bloated police force. We have a lack of housing for our community members. Truth Farm experiences this on a daily basis, and yet we have too many police officers. We have an overdose surge in Broome County right now. We have one of the highest overdose rates in New York State. And we've lost 2 lives per month during the month of February, and yet we have a bloated police force. We have a lack of resources for people who need assistance in the City of Binghamton, whether it be food, housing, substance use treatment, mental health disorders. People go on waiting lists for months and months and months to see a mental health provider, and yet we have a bloated police force. I really would love to see the City of Binghamton take this opportunity to not reform what they have now, but downsize what they have now because it is oversized, and shift those funds to taking care of the community that you have. The demographics are what they are. We are currently considered a poor community, so why aren't we addressing the needs of the community? And if we were to do that, it is proven if we feed people, provide housing, and meet their basic needs, crime rates drop. Why aren't we taking a proactive approach, shift the funding away from the police force, and put it towards the resources that our community desperately needs? And I would really make a plea to the City Council that you use your power as a checks and balances body of government to pull this process back in, rein it in, and make sure that the public really truly has an opportunity to provide meaningful input and to actually change the way that we are funding policing in the City of Binghamton. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, caller.
Okay, that number again is 772-7100. You're calling for public comment? Yes. And what's your address? Okay. I'll put you through. Okay, this is Brian Swan from McNamara Ave in Binghamton.
Hi, I am a mechanic at the Binghamton Johnson City Joint Sewage Facility. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Now, after watching the city council meeting from December, where questions were directed at Elliot Wagner, I thought he did a very good job, by the way, answering the questions. I'd like to weigh in as a mechanic at the wastewater plant. I'd like to give council an idea of how we use the CMMS system for maintenance, inventory, etc. Our day in the mechanic shop begins with a morning meeting. Our head mechanic speaks with us about upcoming projects, our jobs that we might be in the middle of or just finished. This gives us a chance to get on, like the same page and get updates, etc. After our meeting, we look at the CMS program on one or more of our 2 shop computers that we have, and work in teams. One on the north side, half of the plant, and one on the south. The CMMS consists of open work orders. It can be oil or filter checks or changes that have come due, valve exercising, or like logging in runtime hours on specific machines. Some are weekly, others are monthly, and sometimes they're annual. There's all kinds of different time frames. We then do our daily plant walkthrough inspections, and this consists of the teams, north and south, walking through all of the buildings and basically looking around, observing and checking equipment and process. We've caught many things, like, for example, a leaking connection on a polymer skid or an air handler install, a bolt that loosens and fell out of the course screen auger. So, this is an important part of our daily routine. And when we catch a problem or one that's reported to us, we fix it. And then on to the CMMS to generate a work order to that specific job. It also helps to, track issue patterns in the future. For example, this particular grinder is going through blades much faster than others. Why is that? As to the assets and inventory, it's a vast system. And as one council person mentioned, we don't want to go down a rabbit hole. And that's a good point. The CMMS is an excellent tracking tool, giving us info in many different ways on many different pieces of equipment and process for inventory, keeping track of what's on hand, etc. So this info has to be inputted by hand. Before the plant was fully operational, our head mechanic had the foresight to have us walk through the buildings and capture model and serial numbers for the assets. We inputted this info and its location, manufacturer, process, and etc. Right? Building has its own unique equipment, and this was really a major undertaking, and it paid off to have a running jump on the system before the plant was fully operational. Also pertaining to the turnover of equipment, we had to do most all of the legwork as far as finding like what type of oil or frequency of maintenance, etc. As turnover proceeded, we would receive pallets with oftentimes random spare parts that had to be sorted. And there were times that we had to figure out just what these items were on this pallet and what equipment does this go to. It was very frustrating at times. And this is also very time consuming for us because we have a sewage plant to attend to. As far as putting a dollar amount to random pieces.
Sir, you have 1 minute.
Okay. As far as putting a dollar amount to random pieces of inventory, I'm really not so sure as how to go about it, as that info never really came to us. Some assets came with more spare parts than others, and some had none at all. So the CMS is ever expanding, and the more we use it and input info, the better it works for us. And I hope this answered a few of your questions. And if you have more, we're really very approachable, and we want you to have the answers. And we all want to be on the same page. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Okay, that number again to call in tonight is 772-7100. Hi, you're here for public comment? Okay, what's your full name and address? Okay, I'll put you through. Okay, this is Tina Chronopoulos from Laurel Avenue.
Good evening. My name is Tina Chronopoulos. I'm a representative on City Council as the CRS-NDT. I'd like to address a couple of topics. Given that you authorized the Flint Institute to be paid more than $30,000 for their services, I think you should know that the survey on police reform they released was deeply problematic. 1, there was no space for additional or qualitative anonymous comments. 2, there were numerous leading questions. For example, quote, many of the needed police reforms will require the city to direct more resources towards the BPD, unquote. unquote. This is a question designed to get community members to agree that the only way that BPD can be reformed or improved is by directing yet more money towards it, when it is already one of the best funded departments in the city. Or take this question, quote, requiring new officers to live within the city of Binghamton will have an adverse impact on the size and the quality of the applicant pool, unquote. The way the question is raised makes an assumption that the answer is yes. In other words, the person answering the question is being led to believe that requiring new officers to live within the city will be a bad thing. 3, there was a trick question. Quote, in this country, the causes of racial and ethnic disparities in criminal justice are social and economic, unquote. The way the question is phrased is deliberately misleading and obfuscates the fact that the reason there are racial disparities in policing is because law enforcement agencies, their leadership and their employees are working within a system of white supremacy. Racial disparities in policing have absolutely nothing to do with social and economic factors. 4, the survey presents a very narrow scope of actions for the public to comment on. Amongst other things, it does not offer the option of people articulating their thoughts on establishing a community oversight committee or banning no-knock warrants or making misconduct records and complaints filed against the BPD public. Remember, Section 50A of the Civil Rights Law was repealed last summer and Utica Police Department has put their officers' records online. I'd like to think that the BPD is only hiring and retaining officers who are, to quote someone I know, good apples. If you've got nothing to hide, show us what you've got, please. In any case, I hope very much that the raw data of the survey will be released to the public, especially since the Spin Institute was paid with public money. Several collaboratives across the state have made their survey results, including raw data, publicly available. Second, the mayor has repeatedly talked about how the process he put into place has been transparent and aimed at soliciting diverse voices. Nothing could be further from the truth. There is no one on the committee representing the Muslim or Jewish communities, no one representing the disabled folks, no one representing LGBTQIA folks, and so on. The outreach the mayor claims to have made has been absolutely minimal. There has been very little information provided to the public about the process, and instead, City Hall has done everything in its power to limit even some members of the collaborative from knowing what's going on. Don't forget the mayor has also been unashamed in using divisive language, which is a deliberate move to delegitimize those most impacted by policing in the city and elevating the voices of its constituents, mostly white people who either love the police or are not negatively impacted by them. This brings me to my third point. Anyone who claims that there are no racial disparities in policing in Binghamton lives on another planet. The data clearly shows that use of force is disproportionately applied to Black people here in town. On average, for the years 2015 to 2019, 44% of use of force applications happened to white people, while 49% happened to Black people. This is completely out of whack in a city where 12% of residents are Black. This isn't an issue that can be fixed with diversity training alone or hiring more Black officers. Research shows that this kind of racial disparity is systemic and needs to be addressed by some of the suggestions others and I have made. Finally, I'd like to comment on something that was said on Monday by a city council member. Remember how several meetings ago you all did much grandstanding about the personal attack against one of your colleagues? Many of you talked at great length about your outrage and then also mentioned unity and working with each other in good faith. And yet Councilman Scanlon had nothing better to do, as is his wont, to throw two of his colleagues under the bus with divisive language. Statements like yours completely undermine any kind of claim Republican council members have made about wanting to work with your colleagues across the aisle. I sure hope that the Republican side on city council can muster some basic manners when it comes to talking about and to their Democratic colleagues. It's not a good look when you are constantly and consistently attacking two women, one of whom is significantly younger than you and the other of whom is Black. Two women, by the way, who are doing more in terms of questioning and educating the public on how city council works than most of you. Please do better, grow up, and stop being petulant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The number again?
Okay, that number again tonight to call in is 772-7100. Hi, you're calling for public comment? What's your full name and address? Okay. What did you say the street address was? I'll put you through. Okay, this is Gary Edwards from Clarendon Drive.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, evening. I work at the sewage treatment plant in Vestal, and I guess I have a couple questions pertaining to the RFP that was recently put out, and I believe actually there was 2 bidders, and the info was put on the website, but the info of the actual name of the bidders wasn't there. At least I couldn't find it. I mean, I could have been looking in the wrong place. Sure, that's possible. I was wondering why we would keep that a secret from public knowledge of what 2 companies would be interested in doing the inventory and checking out our CMMS software. My other comment / question is that we have been working on this CMMS system for quite some time. Like Brian Swan said, we started before we even got most of the equipment handed over to us, so that we were ahead of the game. But of course, there's still tons and tons of things to put into this system. My issue with that is why we would be probing us over a system that we are still working on. It's kind of like when we did the RFQ to privatize the plant. We were trying to jam it down everybody's throat to privatize the plant before the workers even had a chance to run the plant and show that we could do it. I don't know if any of you are aware, but we had DEC come down, I'd say a month or 2 ago, and go over our numbers and do a walkthrough of our plant. And they gave us an A+ rating. All of our numbers are half of our limit that we can send to the rivers. So we're doing an excellent job. We were told that there was only 2 or 3 companies in the whole world that could run this state-of-the-art plant. We are showing everybody that we can do this. Management is working great with us. We are working great with management. We are getting everything buttoned up and figured out and moving things around and trying to get things to work correctly there. The active flow is an issue, and our operators and management are working with the company that installed that to fine tune it. As far as I know, none of the reps have been to the plant. It's all our guys working to figure this out. So I guess I just want to make sure that we are not wasting more money on an RFP, which turns into an RFQ, which sends X amount of dollars to a company to look at a system that isn't ready, it isn't done. We had no help. We just got 80% of our O&M manuals a week after the RFP came out, from what I understand, which I'm not sure why you would get a manual for equipment a year and a half later. It's been installed and given to the plant. Brian said when we're putting stuff into the computer, we have to look it up on Google, try to find the owner's manual on there so that we can find out the maintenance schedule. It's a very tedious and long process to enter stuff that you have no paperwork for. I would beg you to, before we give a company all this money to, I don't know what they're actually going to do, to tell you that everything isn't in the system.
Sir, your 5 minutes is up.
Give us some time to finish the system before you guys are jumping on our backs about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that number again to call in tonight is 772-7100. I'll read the number one more time. The number to call in tonight is area code 607-772-7100. You're here for public comment? Hello? Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me? Yes, can you give me your full name and address? Sorry, what was your name again? Sorry, what was your name again? What was your name again? I'm sorry. Okay, I'll put you through. Hold on. Okay, this is Derek Goodison. He's from Redford Avenue.
Maybe that's some feedback. I just was calling. I heard this was about like not an open forum, but to call in beforehand. Now that you're open to taking calls, I just wanted to mention that Binghamton Police Department could use serious reform in the coming decades. I mean, it's been expanded to a point beyond necessity. There's too much staff. The mayor's already talking about expanding to a Gestapo-like intelligence center, which is just out of the question. The jail has too large of a budget. We could probably do with just reducing a majority of these to meet just about any of the underprivileged communities' needs. That's all I really have time. So.
Thank you. Okay, the number again to call in tonight is 772-7100. Hi, you're here for public comment? Okay, what's your full name and address? Okay. Okay, this is Tariq Abdulazam from Tremont Avenue in Binghamton.
Good evening. I'd like to talk on a few topics. One is in tonight's packet that was made available to the public, there is a resolution that references an attachment. And this is the one regarding a number of jobs, I guess, that will be brought back and reintroduced. This happens all the time in that there is reference to an attachment and the attachment is not included. So I would just ask the city council president, please ensure in working with the clerk that the packet that is made available to the public by law before it is voted upon is fully available. And in this case, it was not. There is reference to all of the positions that are being considered in that resolution where the attachment is missing, that they were previously approved today at the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. The city clerk, who is responsible for posting the agenda and the meeting minutes for the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, has failed to do that repeatedly over the last probably 4 years. Again, the city clerk is your employee. His performance reflects upon you as a legislative body, and his repeated dismissal and negligence of the values of transparency reflect poorly upon you all. So, Council President Rezzanetti, it would be great if you could also ensure Mr. Rogers does his job and follows the law, and possibly even goes back and posts the 5 years of meeting agenda and minutes that he has failed to provide to the public through the website. The second thing I'd like to talk about, of course, is the city assessment. There was a significant transaction that was made by a New York City equity firm on the city's west side that went completely unnoticed and unreported. Over 3 days in November 2019, the Stonebridge Property Group, a private equity firm from New York City, acquired 34 Binghamton properties, 34 residential properties on the west side, largely in Councilwoman Riley's district where college student is concentrated, and 1 downtown property. They purchased this 34 property portfolio for nearly $11 million. I reviewed the assessments of these 34 properties, and that is more than 4 times what we are actually, the city has these properties assessed at. The total assessed values of these 34 properties is only about $2.55 million. But yet the private market just made a clear signal that they value these properties at $11 million. Again, I have called out repeatedly for the last couple years and shown plenty of examples that we have a broken and inequitable property assessment system here in the city of Binghamton. It is one of the oldest assessments in the state of New York. It is incredibly unfair and inequitable, and I do not understand why no one on this GOP-led council raises any concern about this. I would encourage folks who want to read more about this massive investment by a New York City equity firm in our housing to go to binghamtonbridge.org. Lay out all of the details. I provide plenty of links to public, but even more importantly, I outlined a scenario as to what it could look like if we actually had an administration that cared about restoring equity and fairness to our assessment system. And just even by using this hypothetical example, it shows that homeowners will generally see their tax bill go down. An investor owner, maybe a young family who owns a two-family property, could probably see their taxes go down a little or stay the same. And then for large student rental properties, many of them that are being illegally used, or for downtown property owners where the market has skyrocketed, they will pay. Okay, 1 more minute. Is that correct?
No, your 5 minutes is up. I gave you a 1-minute warning over a minute ago.
Okay. I never hear. I would also encourage the council to consider using Zoom and inviting people in as video. I participate in many of these council meetings across the country, and they are way more inclusive. And
Thank you. Could you read the number again?
The number again to call in tonight is 772-7100.
One more time.
Yes, that number again is 772-7100.
Okay, let's move on. Here are all the colors. Thank you to everyone who's called in. Let's move on to the preferred agenda. Would anyone like to pull anything from the preferred agenda before we move on?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Friedman.
Go ahead.
I would like to please pull ordinance 21-25 from the preferred agenda, please.
Okay. So do we need a second for that?
No.
No, okay. Mr. Clerk, can you introduce the agenda items?
Yeah. Is there anything else that anyone would like to pull? And if not, I can introduce the first one.
Yes, please.
So the first item tonight on the preferred agenda is introductory ordinance 21-21, considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2021 police budget to fund the payout for an administrative assistant position.
Any comments? Okay, next.
Okay. Next, we have introductory ordinance 21-22, considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2020 Binghamton-Johnson City Joint Sewage Treatment Facilities capital budget for reimbursement village local system costs.
Any comments? Okay, go ahead, next.
Next is introductory ordinance 21-23, considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2020 Binghamton-Johnson City Joint Sewage Treatment Facilities capital budget for expense overruns.
Any comments? Okay, next.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 21-24, considered in finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2021 Parks and Recreation Department budget for a personnel change.
Any comments? Okay, next.
Okay, next we have introductory resolution 21-14, considered in the Public Works, Parks and Recreation Committee. And this is a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding between the City of Binghamton and the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, AFL-CIO Local 317.
Any comments? Next.
Next, we have introductory resolution 21-15, considered in finance. And this is a resolution authorizing the Binghamton Fire Department to apply for a FEMA staffing for adequate fire and emergency response grant, the SAFER grant.
Any questions? Thank you. Next.
Next is introductory resolution 21-16.
Excuse me, Madam President.
Yes,
Madam President,
yes, Councilman Scanlon.
did I hear a second on the 21-25 held over?
No,
No.
to pull something from the preferred agenda doesn't need a second.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So the next item on the preferred agenda is introductory resolution 21-16, considered in planning. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor to amend the contract with Salvation Temple Church for the use of FY45 CDBG funds.
Any questions? Next.
Next is introductory resolution 21-17, considered in planning. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Whittam Planning and Design LLC for development of the Stadium District Master Plan.
Any questions? Okay,
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve the preferred agenda as amended.
thank you.
Seconded. This is Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you. Okay.
We'll do a roll
We have to-
call vote
yeah.
for that. Okay. All right, Councilman Scaringi,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye. Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Restinetti.
Aye.
Okay, that's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Okay, so we are now moving on to our third agenda. And we're going to start with the introductory ordinance 21-25, considered in finance.
Councilman Strawn, would you like me to introduce it or do you have it?
No, I'm good. I was just waiting for it asking. Thank you. I'd ask a council for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 21-25. an ordinance to amend the 2021 police fire maintenance of roads and refuse budgets for various positions.
Second.
Do we have any questions, comments?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Friedman.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. I was going to bring up an issue that one of the callers raised, that there is a reference to an attachment that is not here. In section 1 of this ordinance, it says to fund various positions as set forth in the attachment annexed here too, and there's no attachment, so this appears to be incomplete.
Yes, so that attachment, our apologies. It's actually the attachment for the original RL, which is RL 21-42, and it is in the work session packet. I can email that to everyone right now if you'd like.
Well, I think we should get it obviously as soon as possible. Are you saying it was in the packet that went into?
It's in the work session
The
packet.
work session packet.
Yes.
Okay, I'm pulling that up now. The other thing that I wanted to raise about this ordinance is that this is, if we were to pass this, it would be under the assumption that we were receiving funds in the future that we haven't yet received. Am I correct in that assessment?
Well, all the funds for this are coming from the existing contingency.
Right. But I think they were put, I mean, if I'm understanding correctly, that they were put in the contingency because of the reduction in, us having to tighten our belts, so to speak, because of COVID, and then we were sort of banking on the federal aid to make up for those positions that were held in contingency. Am I understanding that correctly?
Certainly partially, but the other part was to see how sales tax, how the year ended. And I think the comptroller explained all that the year ended better than anticipated. And that's primarily why they're moving forward with these positions.
Thank you, Ken.
I see. Okay, thank you.
This is Councilwoman Riley.
Go ahead.
Yes, so I do have a question though regarding the budget amendments approved by the Board of Estimate and the crafting of this particular legislation. If we look at all of the other budget transfers and approvals, there are totals. So if you just scroll back, look at ordinance 2124, it says transfer, totals. Can we see what was presented to the Board of Approvals to ensure that it matches what we received in the work session packet? Because right now we don't know the totals that we are voting on to approve unless we go back to what was in the business meeting and it matches what was approved by the Board of Estimate today.
This is Kenneth Frank. I'm on the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. It's the same attachment.
Can we see that? Or are we going with your verbal?
I think we have all that, don't we?
It's what's attached to the RL.
And I just emailed the work session packet that contains this attachment in it to everyone on council.
So again, we are to assert that nothing was amended and sent to the Board of Approvals.
Correct. It was what was considered at estimate and apportionment was the same thing that was considered at your work session.
But as council people, we can't have record of such. We have to take the verbal.
I think that the clerk has provided you both the RL and the agenda from the ENA.
Oh, you sent the
Right, Lee, did you provide the agenda for ENA with the attachment?
I sent them the work session packet. And on page 39 of the work session packet is the attachment that's referenced in the legislation.
It does not have anything about ENA, an agenda for ENA.
Right. The only thing that was considered at ENA was the RL 21-42.
Again, it's not that we are trying to belabor the point. It's that we want to move forward with surety that what we're voting on is what was seen by this ENA. Because again, this RL does not have totals on it as presented right now.
I certainly can represent on behalf of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment that it's the same RL.
And let me open the email, and so our totals that we're transferring, hold on, I have to go to the email, and you guys can keep going. I'm going to pull up the email.
Are there any other questions regarding this?
But can we use this as an example of how, again, sorry, my daughter wants me to pick her up from basketball, so she keeps calling. But we don't have the information, and so we're scrambling, that's all.
Madam President, can I make a comment?
Go ahead, Councilman.
I just listen to this. Doesn't our corporate counsel has told us specifically on this meeting that it was, isn't that? First of all, I trust him implicitly. Secondly, isn't that become part of the record here tonight? Isn't that why he's on the call? He told us not only that it was, but it was that he's also on that committee. I'm just asking for now and for future sake. If he's here and he represents something, I believe that's part of the record, isn't it?
And in this case, we specifically did it as an attachment given the number of transfers that were included, so that we didn't have the clerk's office retyping it so that we wouldn't have those kind of errors.
Thank you.
This is Councilwoman Friedman. I'd just like to make a quick comment.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you. I want to say that I feel like often Councilwoman Riley and I tend to, ask for things in writing or make sure that things are posted and things are complete. And I want to say that it's not because we don't trust Corporation Counsel. It's not because we want to belabor things or be obstructionist. I feel like I say this all the time, but it's just, I feel like it's good practice in transparency to make sure that not only we, but our constituents have access to all of these documents in an easy to read manner, in a place where it's centrally located. I've heard from my constituents like, oh, this is frustrating to navigate, or I don't know where I can find this information. And so it's good practice. I think we all care about transparency here. So we're not doing it just to do it, just to be annoying about it. I certainly don't want to do things just to be annoying, but it's good form and practice, in my opinion, to make sure like that. That's why I asked about the attachment. It's not that I don't believe the Board of Estimate and Apportionment or Corporation Counsel. It's that it's important to have all of these documents in an easy to access fashion to make sure that we're doing due diligence to our constituents and ourselves, to make sure that we have all of the information available. Sorry, I said this was going to be a quick comment and I ended up going on for a long time, but point being, it's no disrespect. It's for the sake of consistency and transparency. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
It sounds like we pretty much have all the information that we needed, so I don't know that there's necessarily scrambling. And Ken has just told us, and I guess at this point, I'm looking at what is it that you want to go with this, Councilwoman Riley, Councilwoman Friedman, and that's not to be disrespectful in any way at all, but what are you thinking about this? Because we need to continue moving with our items.
Can I also point out, it is on the city's website as part of the, work package from Monday night.
Okay, thank you, Ken.
And also I just emailed everything from me, everyone in council.
So any other questions regarding RL 21-25? Okay. It's roll call, right?
Someone should call to question.
Oh, call the question?
Madam President?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, just so everyone knows, so this was included. The transfers from and to respectively are for the following: 8 police officers, 449, 540, 4 firefighters, 99, 358, 1 heavy motor equipment operator, 74, 564, 1 street maintainer, 63, 520, 1 street maintainer, 63, 520, and an additional laborer, equipment, 2 equipment mechanics, and an additional vacancy on fire for 47,135.80.
Thank you. More questions?
If there are no other questions, I'll call the question.
Questions we called?
Councilman Scaringi,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strong,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Rosnetti.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you. So now we have Councilman Strawn introduce the secret motions for introductory ordinance 21-26.
Thank you, Madam President. Introductory ordinance 21-26 is an ordinance authorizing the sale of 40 Medford Street to Jonathan D. Rigdon for $850. This requires 3 actions under seeker, and I will start them now. The first, I make a motion to declare the city as lead agency under seeker.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Passes.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. The second motion is a motion, I make a motion to identify the proposed action as unlisted under seeker.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Passes.
Okay. Thank you. The third is I make a motion to issue a negative declaration under seeker for the following reasons. This is a vacant lot in a residential area. The purchaser owns the adjoining property at 46 Medford Street. The proposed use is green space, except a shed up to 10 by 10 may be constructed if pre-approved by the city planning department for the adjacent property. The transfer will preserve green space and provide for future maintenance.
Second.
Okay, so we'll take full roll call.
Yes. All right, we'll take a full roll call for this one. Councilman Scaringi,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Rosnetti.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Councilman Strawn, please continue.
Yes. Now I'd like to, thank you, Madam President. I'd like to ask Council for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 21-26. An ordinance authorizing the sale of 40 Medford Street to Jonathan D. Rigdon for $850.
Second.
Any comments, questions?
Call the question, Madam President.
Will you call? Roll call, please.
Councilman Scaringi,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Rosnetti.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you. Okay, so this brings us to communication from council members. Thank you, everyone, and we're going to move on to, let's see, we're starting with District 6 tonight, so that would be Councilman Strong.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't have a whole lot to report tonight. I just, once again, I know we've repeated it, but the other night the wind was blowing pretty bad around the south side here. And I think DPW did a pretty good job picking everything up as best they could. So I thank them for that. And just been traveling around the city a lot. Just want to thank all of our city employees for the great job that they do on a daily basis. See a lot of public works and police and just a lot of different kinds of police vehicles for some reason this week. Just seems like they jumped out to me, all different kinds of operating equipment and just all different kinds of employees. So I just want to thank our city employees for the great job that they do. And I'm thinking spring, so welcome spring soon, and have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Councilman Scanlon.
Thank you, Madam President. This question is for Councilwoman Freeman and Councilwoman Riley. I'm asking you two because I believe I know where everybody else stands on these issues. So I want to know if you condone the leader of plot attempting to alter the results of the Fit Institute survey. I would hope that you address this in your council comments. For Councilwoman Riley, I'm asking you, are you a member of plot or are you not a member of plot? If you're not, you can say something like this. I, Councilman Tom Scanlon, and I'm not a member of plot, nor do I support plot. If you can't state that, then I guess I have my answer. Thank you, Madam President.
Moving on to Councilman Swearengin.
Thank you, Madam President. Like Councilman Strawn, I just want to thank all of our city employees, DPW, garbage, parks, all of the work that they have been doing over the cold months. It's great to see the warmer weather coming in. And just want to mention the ward as well as the city of Binghamton suffered a very big loss this week. For those who may not know, Joe Kovart Jr. Passed and was called home to the Lord. We miss him dearly. He was an incredible man, incredible family, small business owners in the ward on Clinton Street, right off of Clinton Street rather. In its 99th year, they gave so much back to the community, and we wish his wife and his children and his family the best. We give them our prayers and our thoughts, and just want to thank Joe for the incredible life that he lived. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Moving on to Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you, Council President. And my condolences to the family that was just mentioned by my co-council person. I'm glad that we are given the opportunity to speak, because this reminds me of 2016 at the Democratic National Convention when Hillary Clinton was bullied and Miss Michelle Obama stepped up to the podium, another strong Black woman, and said, when they go low, we go high. And that's what I choose to do today, and ignore some things that are beyond my control. Today, we had a great day. We had the flag raising to, again, recognize Women's History Month. We were united, although we maintained our 6-foot distance to make sure we were not infringing upon one's social concerns regarding COVID. And it was a great day. We had great conversations, and we were able to unite around one cause. I am thankful for that. It was beneficial in more ways than I can even express right now. As we move forward, we have questions that were presented during the public comment session. One the police reform initiative. There are some things that I'm thankful to hear from Joe, who sits as a member of the Democratic Party, about what's being said. And so I look forward, since we just supported this budget, I look forward to seeing the promises that were discussed surrounding community policing because of the increased police force. I look forward to some of the things that I, be- I believe was, see, someone's talking, I believe was discussed about not using money from one area, but ensuring that everything that is presented is adequately funded so that the conversations and the hopes discussed are realized. So I look forward to that. And finally, the joint sewage treatment workers, we thank you for calling. You did bring up some things that I would love to find out about. I did not know there was an RFP on the boards regarding inventory. As you remember, during December's meeting, I didn't even I had a lot of questions about the questions that ensued during that meeting. So I thank you, and I will be reaching out. We have a meeting on Tuesday because I am on that board as the council representative, and I look forward to hearing more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Riley. Moving on to Councilwoman Friedman.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a few things that I'd like to address. First of all, there was a caller who commented about members of council not being on camera, and I absolutely hear that. I wanted to state that this program that we use for to broadcast the meetings is for some reason not compatible with my Chromebook, so I can't be on camera yet, but I think are going to be switching platforms soon, so hopefully you'll be able to see my gorgeous face on camera soon. But I hear you. I mean, it's hard being virtual. It definitely feels like there's a big gap in, there's something lacking. There's something that's kind of alienating about calling in and not seeing the people that you're talking to. And I know I haven't been able to be on camera for a long time. So I feel that. I wanted to acknowledge that. Hopefully when we switch the platform that we use, I think that it will be more conducive to having what feels like a closer representation of what an in-person meeting feels like. I also wanted to say, just like Councilwoman Riley, I was fortunate enough to be at the flag raising today with Councilwoman Resinetti as well, and that was a lovely event. Happy Women's History Month, everyone, and the International Women's Day is on March 8th, and I made a brief comment there that it's whenever we have a history month, it reminds me not only of all of the contributions that women have made in the past and continue to make, but also all of the work that we still need to do. My vision for the future is hopefully a point when we don't need to have these sort of acknowledgments of certain groups because everybody will have justice and equity in the future. That's maybe a long ways away, but I think we're all working towards that. I'll also address Councilman Scanlon's comment in the same way that I have said in the past, that I'm not quite sure what me saying that I've done organizing in the past with plot necessarily does. Like I didn't, as I've said before, I think a better question that we need to be asking is, why is it that so many community members are dissatisfied with the way that we've gone about approaching this necessary police reform? I think that is a way more important question that we should be asking. Did we do this in the way, did we do this in the spirit of the executive order? Or did we just do this to say that we did it to check a box on our on our to-do list. I hear the frustration in people that, I was there at that meeting that was marketed as a public hearing. And then, I had some of my constituents actually texting me during the meeting saying, why can't we speak? Why can't we speak? So I get it. I understand that frustration. And I think that's a way more important issue that, we need to be addressing. That's just my personal opinion. All right. So happy International Women's Day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're moving on to Councilman Burns.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't have a lot either tonight. I do want to get some information, so I'm going to work with Councilman Riley about getting the information from our sewage treatment plant. And I'm glad that they called in, and I want to find out exactly what's going on over there. What Gio said about the Kavariks, the Burns, I put it on my Facebook this week when I heard about it. So my love goes out to Debbie Kavarik and all them, but Kavariks they're really the heart and soul, the small business of Binghamton, of the ward and of Binghamton. And so there was definitely a loss. And then it occurred to me that we had a loss on the south side recently. I got to go, we had a firefighter, Bobby Smith. He was a firefighter for 29 years. And he was my age, and I would see him in his lawn. He grew up on the west side where I did with me, and he and his wife, Tina. And he was as healthy as I am. And he got this terrible virus, and he died. And it's like getting hit by a car. And so Binghamton, our retired firefighter organization lost somebody there. And I would send my love to his family. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Burns. Yeah, just a couple quick things. I too want to say my condolences to the Kavarik family. It's a big loss for our community. These are folks that have been here for a very long time. They're part of the fabric of the community, and it was somewhat unexpected. So my condolences to those who have lost their loved ones. Regarding the camera issue, I agree that it feels like there's a bit of a disconnect, and it's just been really challenging since COVID started and we had to make these adjustments. I have consistently been on camera, not because I want to show my gray roots to anybody, but because I do believe that it is important for us, for our constituents, for taxpayers to be able to look at the representatives face to face. I just think that it's good practice. It's something that I've talked about in our work sessions, and I too, I hope that we'll be moving on to Zoom shortly, and hopefully more will be able to join on camera. I wanted to say, what a great day today, celebrating Women's History Month, and was out there participating in raising the flag with Councilwoman Riley, Councilwoman Friedman. And it is a day or a month. We certainly highlight the women's struggles, women's contributions through history, all that we bring. And as we look at the past, we can't forget it, obviously, but we need to always be focusing on the future. We need to be focusing on the work that we can do. We need to be making sure that there's always room at the table for women of different backgrounds, race, political affiliations, so forth. That we have a voice always. Stay warm, stay safe, and have a good night. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Adjourn.